guys, Eli here, back for a new stuff video. As you kind of come to expect of me, it's kind of a weird mishmash of a little bit of everything I listen to. Some prog, some death metal, some black metal, and just a slab of music. So yeah, let's check it out. I think we'll start off with the prog type stuff. I'll kind of get it out of the way since I know most of you guys don't care. Some do. But so I got some random cassettes. Like I got this 1985, I think, or no, 1980 sixth album from Utopia with Face the Music. I like Utopia. You might know Utopia from being a project of one Todd Rundgren. Pretty cool J card. Todd Rundgren he's kind of a musical chameleon. He's been making music since, God, at least the early 70s. He still makes music to this day. He's done many different genres and many different sounds. Seems like a cool guy. He kind of likes to challenge himself. But his earlier stuff with his Utopia project was at least the first few albums are pretty much just straightforward, complex prog rock. From what I understand, they kind of would evolve like most bands did. Most prog bands weren't making actual prog past like maybe mid-70s at the latest. So this is kind of like a Beatles-esque art rock pop album. I haven't spent a lot of time with it yet, but it's kind of cool. Any of you guys into Todd Rundgren or Utopia? What do you think about this album? Then my other cassette, I have this second album that I have now from the Dutch prog band Focus. So this album is from 1985. This was kind of some people thought it was a reunion album for the band because they were kind of not really doing much up until this point. Some people call it a reunion. Some people call it pretty much a Jan Ackerman. Oh, that lighting. Some people call it a Jan Ackerman solo project. To me, it just sounds kind of like a jazzy. It's kind of just like almost a fusiony jazz rock. You could call it. I don't know. A lot of his genres kind of blur the line for me. I don't know. Maybe you could call this prog. Jazz rock is what I'm going to call it. That's kind of what I'm hearing. So, yeah, I've been wanting to get more stuff from Focus. So, yeah, cool. All right, then I got some vinyl here, starting with an album that I honestly did not know existed. You might be surprised because I like this band a lot, but I haven't heard all their stuff. I've only really been into this band maybe 5 or 6 years. So this is the 2012 album from Asia. This is a Record Store Day picture disc. This album is called XXX, and I have no idea why it's called that. Kind of a weird name for this band, but yeah. Don't do what I did and type in Asia XXX in your search bar. It'll pretty much bring what you'd expect. So yeah, nice picture disc. I don't know why I'm pulling it out. You already saw it. And so you might be wondering, how did Asia sound in 2012? And I gotta say, they sounded pretty good. I like all the Asia stuff that I've heard, honestly. I know it's weird to say, but their earliest stuff is great. Their later stuff is great. I think they were still making, even with the lineup changes, I think they were still making killer music. This album, super strong songwriting. It's maybe not their most rocking album, and it's maybe not their proggiest album, but it's a nice blend between the slightly proggy, rocking, and pop tunes that you would expect from Asia. All the Asia elements are there, and it's a good album. Carl Palmer's drums are insanely good, reminding me that he is probably my second favorite drummer of all time, just after Neil Peart. Yeah, if you're an Asia fan, you've never checked that album out, do it because it's really good. Then I've got the first thing from this band. I've kind of been wanting to look into them for a while. So we're talking about British kind of folky sort of prog band, Renaissance. They formed in the early 70s. Hell, maybe even actually I think late 60s. This is 1974. This is their fifth album. So this band was kind of known for being a band that was formed by ex-Yardbirds members. If you've never heard Yardbirds, it was a late '60s, early '70s rock band. I think like Eric Clapton was in the Yardbirds. Some other notable people. Is it Jimmy Page? Maybe Jimmy Page. It was kind of like a hard rock supergroup. So, anyways, the lesser known people went and formed this band, Renaissance, to quite a bit of success, I gotta say. Like I said, so the earlier Renaissance stuff is very folky. It's almost just like, very folky rock. They would go on to be a little bit more hard rock and maybe less folky and slightly proggy. But I haven't heard all their stuff. Honestly, I haven't heard much of their stuff, but I'm kind of just testing the waters, getting into it. I like it so far. I don't know if it's going to be a band that I'm going to be like filling out the discography, but we'll see. I'm going to spend some time with it and kind of let it soak in. Then I've got one of the best live albums of all time, especially in the prog genre. We're talking about 1973's Yes Songs from, you guessed it, the mighty Yes. This album, it's a triple LP, so good. I got a very beat up copy. You're probably thinking, Eli, were you trying to find the worst, most beat up copy you could possibly find? Yes. Yes, I did. So yeah, man, this album is just so goddamn good. I'll just kind of show you the pieces, I guess. Because you got to see this amazing Roger Dean artwork, of course. It's not to be missed. At least these two pieces are together. Beautiful. I love how Roger Dean's his artwork. Yeah, it's good, but to me, it's weird. It's weird, and it like instantly transforms me to like this other planet. I guess that's what it's supposed to do. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm going through all this effort for all two of you that actually care. Again, phenomenal live album. This is probably, I'm going to go ahead and say this is probably my favorite live album of all time. It's just impossibly good. It's a long set. Alan White was in the lineup at this point, so we lost him not too long ago. So R.I.P. Alan White. I'll just let you check out the track listing for yourself. It is quite the live set. I cannot imagine any band playing that shit night after night. It's no wonder why this band got so good. All right, and the rest of it is CDs. While I have you hanging in there for the prog, I'm going to show you the jazz rock classic that I bought. I've always wanted to dive into this album. I've heard little bits and pieces of it online before. It's very daunting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully get into it, but I'm going to give it my best shot. This is from 1970. We got Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. So by 1970, Miles Davis already had God knows how many albums under his belt. He's got 100 albums probably. So this album is notorious for being a groundbreaking milestone jazz rock album. So Miles Davis was a pioneer in the jazz world. I'm not saying he created jazz rock, but he was one of the earlier people to, add electric instruments into jazz, adding some rocking elements into it, combining the worlds of basically jazz and rock and roll. I'm not a big jazz guy. Honestly, I've never really gotten into jazz, so this is my first jazz album. Where I'm going to go from here, I don't know. I love the artwork, by the way. It's fucking beautiful. Is all you really can say about that. And once you see the lineup on this album, just the lineup itself is mind-blowing. Yeah, this has got Wayne Shorter, Bernie Maupin, got Chick Corea on keyboards and whatever else he does, Dave Holland. You got the masterful guitar player John McLaughlin from Mahavishnu Orchestra. Lenny White. I don't want to name everyone because it would take me probably a half an hour. But yeah, there's like 10 or 12 people that play on this thing, and it's a long album. It's 2 discs, so it's well over an hour long, I'm sure. But yeah, this is going to be a daunting one for me. Like I said, I might not even be able to get into it, but I'm going to test the waters slowly, just maybe listen to a track or two at a time, and I just want to see if it's something I can get into, and I'm really hoping I can. Being someone that loves prog as much as I do, I've always thought that, you know, what would be the next step after that? I do like some fusion, so I was thinking maybe fusion, jazz rock. I think jazz is stuff that goes way over my head. I don't think I'll ever be able to get into just pure jazz, but we'll see. Maybe when I'm older and not rocking as hard as I am these days. Whatever that's supposed to mean. Alright, so the rest of this stuff is pretty much metal, which is why 99% of you guys watch. So I have this album. I've wanted to get this for a while. This album was a creeper for me. I did not like it when I first heard it. So I'm talking about Cobalt out of Colorado here in the U.S. Formed in 2003. This is their third album from 2009, titled Gin. When I first heard this album, I just thought it was really, really boring. But honestly, I think it's fucking brilliant. This might actually be my favorite out of all the stuff that they did. This has the kind of scathing black metal that they were known for, with also a touch of, like, to me this album kind of sounds like a combination of Neurosis and Marduk. Like if Marduk were to play Neurosis songs or vice versa, that's kind of what you would get here. You have to be a little bit patient. Some of the songs are slow burning. Some of them are very atmospheric and they take a while to get into, but you just have to be patient. You just have to turn off your mind, turn off all expectations and preconceived notions. And I think if you can do that, which luckily I finally was able to, this album is quite good. So if you were a Cobalt fan and thought this album was boring when it came out, check it out again and just be patient, man. Then I've got Storming Bestial Legions live 1996 from Bestial Warlust, one of the progenitors of black death metal out of Australia. This is one of the first bands in that country to play this style. To me, Bestial Warlust were basically Australia's answer to Blasphemy, and I think that's more than a fair comparison. This live album came out a couple years back. I'd been meaning to pick it up. This came out in 2017 via Hell's Headbangers Records. This was a band where a lot of the heavy hitters from the Australian scene kind of got their start. Bands like Cemetery, Urn, Abominator, Destroyer 666, and probably more. I haven't heard this live album yet. I've never heard this band play live. So yeah, stoked to hear it. Then I have the fourth album from Swedish death metal machine Unleashed, entitled Victory. So this band formed in, early 90s, 90 or 91, something like that. They're one of the longest running death metal bands out of Sweden. This is a re-release. This was put out by MDD Records. They've been doing these like Century Media classic re-releases, and they're kind of cool, so I've been picking them up when I can. This is not probably the best Unleashed album, but it is pretty good. This is kind of, if you ask me, this is kind of where Unleashed, kind of a turning point for them. After this, they would become more straightforward, more groove-laden, some thrash elements. They were kind of becoming a little bit less death metal for whatever reason. They would definitely return to that in the earlier 2000s, but for a while they kind of became like a thrashy, almost a groove metal band. I don't think they were terrible, but I certainly don't think it was a good change. I think it was not a good direction for the band to go in, and this album kind of straddles that line, but I still think it's a pretty good death metal album. And another death metal album. I've been wanting to check this band out for a while for a multitude of reasons. So this came out last year in 2021. It was the second album from Portland, Oregon, I think. Portland, Oregon. Death metal band Mortar Theorem. Preserved in Torment. This came out on Profound Low Records. I take it back, not Portland, Oregon. I think they came from Washington. Olympia, Washington, I think, actually. So this is one thing that bothers me about the metal scene lately. They had an album out in, I think, 2019 or maybe even 2020, and everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about how good it was. And then this album came out last year, and I literally didn't hear anyone talking about it at all. Now, I gave a listen to this. I gave a listen to their first album. I think this album's every bit as good as the debut. So I'm just kind of getting tired of, we're so spoiled with, thousands of albums every year that it's just like people's attention span now is just gone. Like, we have no attention span anymore, and that's what bothers me. The fact that we're hyping up bands and then, on their debut, and then a year or two later they put out a second album that's just as good, and people have already forgotten about the band. I think that's, maybe it's just me. Maybe I just didn't notice people talking about it, but I don't think that's the case. I think the fact that people just can't pay attention to anything anymore, that our memory span is that bad lately, it kind of scares me. Cool booklet, by the way. I don't know. Do you guys notice that shit as well? It's just like, a band will be cool for a year or two, and then it's weird. Then it's like they never existed. It's got to suck to be in a band that's garnered some hype. Then I got a thrash metal album, an album that I've kind of always wanted to pick up, and I gotta say, now that I have it, it's not really that good. This is the second album from San Francisco's Death Angel, Frolic Through the Park. So they formed in 1982. Their first album is fantastic. It's one of the better thrash metal albums of all time, really. It's brutal. It's awesome. I figured, I'd actually never heard this, so I figured on their second album they would probably retain a lot of that. I don't know. And the funny thing is I don't mind their third album that much. Act 3, I think it came out in 1990. So this album kind of straddles the line of Act 3 and the debut, but it's way more on the line of Act 3. You could tell this band, they were talented, they were young, they wanted to be big. They were not content with just being a thrash band. So they were, adding, there's so many elements. There's punk rock on here, there's hard rock, there's alternative rock, there's so many different sounds on here, and all I want to hear is thrash metal. But I don't know. Death Angel, they have their fans for people that are, into that kind of stuff. But for me, I just want to hear thrash. I like Death Angel as a band, but I'm not into most of their music. I think I really just like the first album a lot. This one is okay. Act 3 is okay. Everything after that I have no interest in. So this next album I had to re-buy because my version that I've had for years and years and years is kind of crappy. So I had to re-buy Defenders of the Faith, Judas Priest, 1984. 10th album, probably my favorite cover art from them ever. I don't need to say anything about it. If you haven't heard it by now, you just don't care about metal, and that's a fact. You should give up. It's got some of their classics. Fucking Free Wheel Burning, The Sentinel, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Defenders of the Faith. This is probably in my top, definitely in my top 5 Priest albums. Might even be in my top 3. It's hard to say, but I do like this album a lot. One of their best albums from the 80s for sure. In 2017, I have the 13th studio album from Germany's Helloween with Gambling with the Devil. This is just a random pickup. This is a 2019 re-release, so that's cool that 12 years later it's already getting a re-release, so it sold pretty well. It came out on Nuclear Blast Records. I like Helloween. I think they're awesome, but I don't love... Helloween's one of those bands where I want them to be one of my favorite bands, but they just aren't. Again, I think they're great. I think at times they're just too fucking goofy for me. I like my metal to be a little more serious, even if it seems goofy to some people. If the band takes it serious, I could take it serious. But when the band's kind of goofing off, then that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I don't have a bad thing to say about Helloween, don't get me wrong. And this album is fantastic. They sound so good. So that album from last year that everyone was talking about was a good album. I think this album is better. Andy Darris his voice just sounds top notch. To anyone who had trouble accepting Andy Darris as Helloween's singer, if if they were missing Michael Kiske, I don't understand that, dude. Andy Darris sounds so good on this. I don't even think about Michael Kiske at all when I'm listening to this. I think Andy actually sounds better than Michael Kiske probably ever had. Just my opinion. Not a Halloween purist, so I can say shit like that. But yeah, pretty good album. So this was kind of a weird find. This is the second album from Seattle, Washington's Nevermore, The Politics of Ecstasy. This originally came out in '96 on Century Media Records. So this is a 2005 repress on Dell Imaginero Discos. My guess is, I think maybe some copies of this got lost or something like that, because I just found this at one of our local stores the other day. There's no way they didn't sell all their pressings. Uh, my guess is, yeah, they had to have found some extra copies lying around or something, because this has not been at the store until recently. Yeah, and like I said, yeah, there's no way these wouldn't have sold out by now. That's impossible. So yeah, I like Nevermore a lot. I actually got rid of all my Nevermore stuff like maybe 15 years ago, so that was a stupid move on my end. I decided years after that I really, really like Nevermore, so I'm trying to get all their stuff back, and I never did own this one, so very cool to have it. R.I.P. Worrell Dane. Yeah, I wish I'd have realized how much I like Nevermore and didn't get rid of all their shit. And last but not least, a band that, in my opinion, does a really good job of paying homage to said band, Nevermore, and probably early Queensryche. We got this Decadence in Decay by Silver Talon. So this is a band that formed in 2017. This is the debut full length from 2021. So these guys, I think they're from Oregon, maybe the Portland area. So there's a lot of like retro type metal bands over these last 10, 20 years. And this band is kind of towing that line, but what's cool about them is they're not paying tribute to Iron Maiden or Judas Priest, stuff like that. They're paying tribute to the more progressive power metal type stuff, like I just said, like Nevermore, Queensryche. I think it's fantastic. They're really, really good. They have a great singer. The band can play their balls off. It's just kind of it's a refreshing listen. Like I said, it's a band not trying to sound like Iron Maiden and stuff like that. These guys are, they're paying tribute to another style of metal that I really, really love, and it's very refreshing. I've heard some people talk about this, but not enough. So if you like I said, if you like Queensryche, Nevermore, Sanctuary, stuff like that, definitely check out Silver Talon. Give them a shot. Anyways, that's all I got, guys. And Louis says hello. Thanks for stopping by, as always. We'll talk soon. Cheers.